I wanted to remove my mercury for many years and just noticed that certain problems like gastrointestinal problems that I'd always had were worsening, and was thinking, oh, I wonder if there's leakage from the mercury fillings. I asked my local doctor, who I'd been to for many years, to remove them, who had no idea that I got a severe toxicity from mercury. That
Ooh.
ended up affecting me neurologically. I was presenting a program on Brazilian television. I was always on live television. So I was forgetting what I was saying halfway through a phrase. I knew something was wrong. And I was like, wow, what's going on here?
Welcome to the Green Living Now podcast, the place where we cut through the confusion, expose hidden toxins, and explore natural solutions that support our bodies, our homes, and our well-being. I'm your host, Amy Tedisco-Hartshorn, and in this episode, we're talking about oxygen, but probably not the way that you think about it. My guest, Jason Gilbert, has spent decades working in chiropractic, osteopathy, and functional medicine, supporting elite athletes and everyday people. But it wasn't theory that actually changed his perspective. It was dealing with severe mercury toxicity himself, and later helping his mother outlive a devastating diagnosis. Along the way, one overlooked factor kept showing up, not as a miracle cure, but as something that the body desperately needs in order to heal. Today, we're talking about hyperbaric oxygen therapy, what it actually does at a cellular level, and why delivering oxygen differently may change how we think about healing, recovery, and longevity. Let's get into it. All right, Jason, welcome.
Thank you very much, Amy. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, my pleasure. I am very interested to hear what you have to say. I know you've got some very interesting experiences, but also what you're currently working on now, I find very intriguing. So why don't we first set the stage a little bit? Tell us who you are and what you do.
So I'm Jason Gilbert. I'm Australian, and I graduated a chiropractor 30 years ago, and then combined that with osteopathy and physio and other sporting techniques. And I've worked with the World Surfing League for 20 years or more now, 25 years. I went to South America as a founder of chiropractic in Peru and Brazil, helped start the first university program for Latin America for chiropractic. And parallel to all of that, I guess I was an author. So I've authored books in 3 languages.
Ooh.
And actually, I presented a TV program in Brazil about health on Fox, gone full circle, come back to Australia, basically because mum was diagnosed with late stage lung cancer 9 years ago, and had to step up and apply the methods, I guess, that I'd learned from functional medicine that I studied in Brazil. And I'm happy to say that mum's still alive 9 years later. But yeah, there's a lot of influences in my life, from my mum to my own clients to my own journey dealing with mercury toxicity and spinal surgery.
Oof.
And I guess a whole lifetime of health. Our family owned a health food store when I was a kid. I grew up listening and admiring and being in awe of elderly people, for example, who were healthy and practicing healthy habits. And I always wanted to know what they were doing. So there's a lot jammed into the response to your question.
Yeah.
But a deep grounding in health from way back when I was a kid.
Wow, that's amazing. And so you had some personal experiences. You mentioned mercury toxicity, and I know I read in your profile that came about from having mercury fillings improperly removed. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and I have to actually accept the blame there because I was living overseas. I wanted to remove my mercury for many years
Sure.
and just noticed that certain problems like gastrointestinal problems that I'd always had were worsening, and was thinking, oh, I wonder if there's leakage from the mercury fillings. I
Yeah.
came home and I asked my local doctor, who I'd been to for many years, to remove them, who had no idea. And he didn't follow any safe practice around,
Ooh.
let's say, a mask, a vacuum, or chelation before and after. And
Right.
from that, I got a severe toxicity from mercury. That
Ooh.
ended up affecting me neurologically. As I said before, I was presenting a program on Brazilian television. I was always on television and live television. So I was forgetting what I was saying halfway through a phrase. I knew something was wrong. I was following up every day for between 40 to 70 patients in my clinics,
Oh my
teaching,
goodness.
managing people. And I was like, wow, what's going on here? And
Yeah.
I guess I was also very lucky because at the same time I was treating Brazil's founder of functional medicine, who invited me to study functional medicine with him because he was giving a course to a group of specialists. So I studied that for 5 years in Brazil under him and learned things that saved my life, I'd say, and also my mum's, and
Yes.
now helped many other people's lives.
So that's fascinating. What were the main things that you did to get rid of that toxicity?
Yeah, so back then it was chelation, okay, very strong binders,
Okay.
pharmaceutical ones. However, they would help and then the mercury levels would come back. So they'd obviously draw some out and then they'd return again. It literally took me 8 years to get on
Eight
top of this
years.
process. 8 years, yeah. So it went in phases. The first phase was with one of the doctors that I met studying the course who
Yeah.
did like blood analysis. And that's what also put me in this direction of live blood analysis. And we could see a lot of candy, mold, and all sorts of things in my blood that my blood was hosting that shouldn't be there. So one of the first things we did there was hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And this was
Okay.
15 years ago. So
Oh,
chambers have
wow.
evolved a lot since then. This is a soft chamber. And under the blood, that improved very fast just with the use of sodium bicarbonate and other things in an IV drip to help the biological terrain.
Okay.
It was a continuation of those binders, the chelates.
Yep.
However, it was really, believe it or not, the coffee enemas combined with charcoal, chlorella, and other binders on a daily basis for many years that got the mercury out of my body and kept it out. There was the incorporation also of infrared saunas,
Oh,
sweating,
okay.
rebounders,
Yep.
exercise.
Oh, okay. All the things I've heard about and tried some of.
Yeah, exactly. You hear about these things, but when you're in the position where you need to step up and implement them in your own health,
Yes.
that's when you learn firsthand what works, what doesn't, the logic and the science behind each method. Yeah, it's a long process. And many people have mercury toxicity.
And don't even realize it, I'm imagining.
It's everywhere.
Yeah. And I think that the dental fillings are a huge issue that people don't necessarily know what to do about it. And clearly, there's a very specific protocol that has to be followed when you have them removed. You were mentioning some of the things I think I remember hearing about, like a mouth dam so that it doesn't wash down your throat and all kinds of different techniques. So if
So
anybody that is considering getting them done, they really want to make sure they're going to somebody who specializes in that.
exactly, they should do it properly. For example, looking back at that time, I would have been better leaving them in. Okay, but I had read that warm foods and liquids like tea and coffee can actually heat them up and release a vapor.
Right.
So I acted on that, whereas I
Yeah.
should have been a little slower. I should
Yeah.
have designed my strategy around binders before and how to extract them.
Yep.
As you said, dental dam, there's a vacuum involved, there's
Right.
oxygen, all the rest. And then
Yes.
the post extraction that would involve binders as well, like really
Right.
keeping on top of this. Because I look at cases like mine, and I've met many other people after it that have done similar things and also
Yes.
suffered mercury toxicity.
Are any of those practices ones that you're continuing to this day just for overall detoxing?
Yeah, most definitely. So binders such as zeolite, chlorella, coconut charcoal,
Mm.
regular coffee enemas. And that was something that I
Oh,
left to the last little option because like I went pharmaceutical first. I used some very strong chelates like DMPS and EDTA. However, as I
okay.
said, they work temporarily and then I'd retest and they'd come back. So
Right.
studied the Gerson therapy.
Gerson, yes.
Yeah, yeah, they highlight the importance of getting nutrients in from
Right.
juices on the hour during the day, cold pressed organic veggie juices, and they
Yep.
use 3 or 4 coffee enemas per day because basically they're getting late stage degenerative disease processes and they have to
Mhm.
act fast. And so under Gerson, they're recognizing that nutrients need to get into the body fast and they need to remove toxins as fast as possible. Coffee enema, there's a whole lot of veins called the portal venous plexus. It goes from the end of the gastrointestinal tract back to the liver. So
Oh,
when coffee goes that way back to the liver, expels toxins. It
uh-huh.
also creates glutathione, which goes and helps bind to the toxins, the heavy metals, for example,
Yep.
and remove from the body. But you need to take binders as well to help that process.
Yeah, I've talked with various different functional medicine and alternative doctors that talk about the importance of creating those pathways for the toxins to leave the body, because I know that when people do things to detox, that's great, except for if all those toxins are then free floating in the body, that can cause other problems. So I think, what the strategy that you just described makes a lot of sense. Wow. So,
Avoiding sauna as well. That's really important.
yeah,
If we see the liver as a really large, let's say it's a filter, obviously, but let's compare
right.
it to a big sponge.
Yes.
As that fills up, if our only ability to clean that sponge is just a little press every day, you can
Right.
imagine how long that takes because we can't get in there and wring that sponge out. So as we do that and it releases these toxins, we need to go and bind them. And
Yeah.
also do things like sweat, exercise, good quality water, okay? Because
Yes.
obviously hydration is important to help the liver and the lymphatic system
Right.
flush. It needs to be well thought out. It's not that complex, but well thought out and adhered to.
Sure. And are you using seaweeds at all? Because my understanding was that some seaweeds help bind and
Yeah,
remove
that's it.
metals.
I wasn't then, but I have since visited a farm in Bali. And I didn't know it before, but yeah, apparently it binds it really well.
Oh, cool.
They also don't absorb heavy metals in the sea, so they're a great
Yes,
nutrition source.
exactly. Wow. So I know before we got on, you said the thing that you're most passionate about right now is the hyperbaric oxygen chambers. So would you talk about that?
Sure. Yeah. So, as I mentioned, for myself, back then I used that and I
Yes.
didn't understand the mechanics of it, which I'll explain. And
Okay.
then come home to Australia to visit a couple of years after I got sick. I had the flu actually. She coughed up blood. We discovered she had late stage lung cancer. So, the
Oof.
hospital said, look, it's all about quality of life. We don't want to do chemo. We don't feel that you'll resist it. And
Yeah.
so I had no choice other than getting her back on a plane. So I went back to Brazil, where I helped customize a way that we would help her body. We'd boost her health by focusing on her health and
Hmm.
hope that her health alone was enough to deal with the tumors. Yeah. So there was a lot of things we used. There was ozone therapy and IV drips. But one of the really important things we did was have her in a hyperbaric chamber daily. Okay. And
Wow.
2 months we're in Brazil, her tumor size, her principal one, reduced by 10%. Okay. So we've
Okay.
come home, and then there was a journey as well where I was with her for 6 months. Luckily, in this time, the doctors, I guess, suggested immunotherapy. So
Hmm.
eventually it was combined with a pharmaceutical intervention, and she's
Okay.
still alive 9 years later, which is
That's
incredible.
remarkable. And in
Yeah.
good health?
In great health, yeah. So,
Wow.
but in this time, these chambers have evolved from what was once a hospital grade chamber that
Right.
has high pressure and pure oxygen, okay, injected into the chamber with multiple people generally. And that's very expensive and
Hmm.
strict protocols need to be followed because there's potential safety issues. To
Okay.
these soft chambers that got up to 1.3 atmospheres with ambient air. So that means that there's not oxygen going in there. Back then, it was the ambient air, but you still got a 30% increase in oxygen due to the pressure. Okay,
Huh.
1.3 atmospheres, 30% more than 1 atmosphere. So
Okay.
in this time, the chambers have evolved so that the softer chambers were tougher and they could handle a pressure up to 1.5 atmospheres. And they figured out how to extract oxygen from the air and put it through an oxygen condenser
Huh.
through a mask while the person who's in the chamber is using it. So they're getting between 80 to 95% oxygen in the chamber under pressure. Okay.
Wow. So
And
how is that different than somebody sitting there with an oxygen mask on?
yeah, that's a really good question. When we breathe, we rely on red blood cells, okay, to
Right.
carry oxygen all around the body. And the reason we breathe is to get oxygen to the mitochondria of the cells so the cells can make energy. So
Right.
obviously, any cell in any organ is going to, with more energy, help that organ function at a higher level. And this is why there's this huge confusion around how come there's so many problems aided by the use of mild hyperbaric oxygen therapy. It's because every cell of every organ will do its job better with more energy. Yeah. So
Okay.
these red blood cells, most of us are around 96 to 99% saturated. meaning that if we wanted to breathe oxygen in and we were relying on red blood cells, we can't pass 100% capacity, can we? Because they're already almost 100% full. So what pressure does while you're in the chamber, it bypasses the red blood cell and puts oxygen in the plasma. Yeah, the plasma is the liquid that carries the red blood cells all around the body. Yeah, and usually you might get just under 2% oxygen into the plasma. Under pressure in a hyperbaric chamber at 2 atmospheres, we get 1,200% more oxygen.
Wow. And that's not harmful to have that much.
No, not at all. Not at all. Now, when we're looking at the cause of many illnesses, having a hypoxic component, hypoxic meaning a component that involves less oxygen getting to a tissue, getting to the brain. Let's think post-stroke, for example, post-heart attack, post-concussion, where tissues have been damaged and there's a challenge getting blood supply there under pressure and with more oxygen. These tissues can have incredible results. And what I'd encourage anyone to do after listening to this is they go online, they go to Google Scholar, and if they are suffering from a problem or their family or friends are, do some research. That's where you'll find all your scientific articles. And there's a lot of research.
You said Google Scholar?
They're Google Scholar.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so that's where all the published research in universities and everything is. And you'll see things like studies on the telomere length increasing with hyperbaric oxygen therapy, meaning that at the end of our chromosomes, our telomeres traditionally were recognized to shorten, okay, and any intervention that would maintain them or slow that shortening down would be considered a success. However, what Israeli scientists have discovered this year, 2025, is that it can actually increase telomere length. So in other words, what a great strategy around longevity. It increases the secretion and release of stem cells. So stem cells repair, regenerate, they help boost the immune system. And that's because the pressure helps the stem cells that come from the bone marrow be released under pressure. Yeah. It increases angiogenesis and neurogenesis. That's the creation of new blood networks and the creation of new neuronal networks after only around 10 sessions. That's incredible. So once again, let's imagine a brain injury where certain parts of the brain are being deactivated because they haven't had that for a while. The neurons are going to become less active or even die off. This has the ability to shunt round those areas. Or not shunt round, create new neuronal networks or angiogenesis, where a certain area might be hypoxic because there's blood supply ceased. It can shunt down. And then lastly, there's so many benefits, but it lowers inflammatory cytokines. So if we recognize that inflammation is a very important part of the pathogenesis of many illnesses, wow, if we can lower inflammatory cytokines and deal with that part, then let the body do its job faster. So I basically bought this for myself because I invest a lot in my longevity and I work from home. So I had some of my clients using it and I'm observing incredible results. I've had people literally ring me up in tears and say, oh my God, I'm used to waking up with a foggy brain and I'm clear. And after 3 or 4 sessions, I'm clear. I can focus. I want to go and do exercise again as opposed to feeling like I had a ton of bricks on me. Or I've had people in there with post-surgery. It really helps minimize infections post-surgery and speed up healing because of those mechanisms I explained, stem cells, inflammation, all the rest. Post-concussion, okay. I've had people with Parkinson's, Alzheimer's in there, dementia, because it incredibly boosts neuronal function.
There's a couple of different things that popped into my mind. One is, aren't there some contraindications for people as far as that? Because if they have a plate in their head or maybe a pacemaker, was that the other?
Yeah, so pacemakers aren't, okay.
Pacemakers are not.
So to anyone is if there's a question mark around, especially modern pacemakers, I should say, but if there's a question mark, check in with a doctor who works with it. This is important, okay? 2, there's a big difference between hospital grade and mild hyperbaric oxygen therapy.
What you're practicing is called mild.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
What I'm talking
So
about
what
is
you're
mild
doing. Yes.
2 atmospheres. Okay. Hospital grade over 2 atmospheres. And
Okay.
once again, with pure oxygen under a lot more pressure injected straight into a chamber, as
Yep.
opposed to mild, where you breathe it through a mask inside the chamber at
Right.
a low pressure. Now,
Okay.
everyone who gets in that chamber, irrespective of being in a hospital grade or a mild, has to be able to equalize. Okay?
Okay.
Now, if they can't equalize, they can't go in because obviously the pressure will build up. They could do a tympanic membrane, their eardrum, or something else.
Right.
Chronic obstructive pulmonary disorder, contraindication. Okay, so once again, the inability to be able to equalize at any level, whether it be sinus, nose, lungs, has to be considered.
Okay.
There's a couple of chemotherapy drugs that need to be registered and understood if someone's going to use that. Okay. Claustrophobia. Okay.
Oh.
But these modern chambers are incredible because you're seated, you've got glass in front of you, and you've got someone on the phone guiding you through it. Very different to
wow.
my poor mum, who was a little bit claustrophobic, was in this sort of a tent on the ground, and that can be quite daunting for people who suffer claustrophobia.
Yeah.
But look, I would say if this interests anyone, go and investigate it. And certain conditions, they should go straight to a hyperbaric chamber in a hospital. For example, risk of infection, crush injuries, anything where necrosis is an issue. We want higher oxygen because it really helps deal with possible infection faster. Okay? And in the States, there's 12 conditions that people can research that are covered by insurance. But they're typically those conditions that are potentially life-threatening. Yeah. And then there's a whole lot of off-label conditions, okay, that have been observed, but they're not covered under insurance, okay? For example, cancer and others, anything boosting the immune system. But yes, have huge success with mild hyperbaric oxygen therapy, but people, as I say, should go and do their own research and find out if there's something. Just do a research on that and then take it from there. What's also important to understand is that there's a full range of prices now. So many people are buying them and doing them at home, okay? Because in Australia, let's say your soft chambers have evolved to the point where they can contain 1.5 atmospheres, which is great. And they're around 12,000 American dollars.
Oh, wow. Not cheap.
You know? And consider how much people are paying to actually treat cancer and other degenerative illnesses that aren't covered. This is an incredible option. Is it magic by itself? No. It's very important to make lifestyle changes, to incorporate good sleep, exercise, all the basics as well, help augment the effects of the chamber. Okay.
Glad you said that.
Yeah. Yeah, we shouldn't do it thinking, oh, great, I'm going to continue my toxic lifestyle.
Exactly. And just do sessions in the hyperbaric oxygen tank. People that have sleep apnea, that is a condition where they're not getting the proper oxygen to the body, correct? I would imagine this could be very helpful for people with that condition.
Yeah, and let's simplify the explanation as well. And imagine our body is represented by a plant. There's a couple of plants, right? One particular plant was the sleep apnea plant. It's just not getting enough water during the nighttime.
Yes.
And what this does is help come along and put more water in the plant. And what people need to understand is that it's equivalent, let's say, to being able to put 10 mil. We use mil in Australia as a measure. Okay, let's say 10 ounces, whatever quantity, but a small quantity each time, meaning that there's an initial saturation phase that people need to go through to be able to saturate that plant with sleep apnea. But then the plant, let's say, with cancer or the plant with post-concussion might need more saturation, especially if it's more chronic. So it all depends on the degree of how dry it is, okay, in regards to how we saturate. But what's safe to say is that most protocols have a 10 to 20 session saturation minimum, meaning that we want to have those sessions as sequential as possible, okay, daily if possible, for that 10 to 20 sessions to saturate. And then depending on the condition, There might be 40 or 60 sessions the person will go to, because in the studies, it's the gold standard's around 40 sessions. You'll see most studies standard, but people go, that's a lot. But if they understand the concept that, hey, we're getting saturation into areas that have been deprived, well, it's like building a brick wall. We start with a foundation and then we build up from that. And then with time, obviously the wall might go this way. We do, a little bit more, or some people's walls are built earlier and then they can just spread it out with less frequency.
For somebody that's got a condition where their oxygen saturation is low and they did, let's say, 40 sessions, is that something that then the body can kick in and do its own saturation better? How do you not have to be doing it for the rest of your life?
Oh, sure. Really good question. That's a very common question as well. It really depends on the problem. It depends on the challenge. So let's say, for example, that there's a case of dementia, Alzheimer's, and there's been a beautiful restoration of function to a certain degree. Had Parkinson's patients say, for example, that they were waking up hourly, and then after only a couple of sessions, they're waking up only twice a night. Or Alzheimer's or motor neuron disease patients that had lost their speech and they could get their speech back again. What we don't know, but we can assume, is that it's getting the function to a certain point where we don't want to risk stopping there, because that might be at a baseline level that keeps that person functional at that level. Cancer would be another one. Let's say, a very good friend of mine actually told me the day after I got my chamber that he had bowel cancer. So he did his 60 sessions in a row. And what happened there was that he went back to the doctor. There was a 40% decreased uptake in iodine when he did the comparative test, in the contrast. But he did something you shouldn't do in a chamber, and he held his breath on the way down. You've only got to equalize 4 minutes. He did his tympanic membrane. So that took 6 to 8 weeks to repair. He couldn't go in the chamber in that time. And in that time, the tumor increased in size, not to the size of the original, what it was originally, but it came back about another 17%, where there's no hard and fast answer because it's a condition-dependent situation. It'd be like saying that I'm like 20 pounds overweight and I'm going to change my diet, go to the gym, put all the work in, and that obviously requires a sequence. But I'm not going to get to a point where I've achieved my goals and go, oh, great, the work's done now.
Now I can go back to my old way of being.
Exactly. So I'll continue on with lesser frequency, but a maintenance that's going to continue giving my body what it needs. And what people understand is that most people follow the wrong definition of health. And that's based on how they feel. I always ask people, first consultation, what's your definition of health? Oh, health's when I'm feeling good, when I have energy, everything related to something subjective in regards to them measuring their health, Meaning that, let's say someone like my mum who felt great the day she coughed up blood. It's like, hang on,
she would have said she felt great?
Yeah, definitely. She didn't feel bad. But she had late stage lung cancer. And this happens a lot where people go, I don't understand, I feel good, but I've been diagnosed with this. Or let's imagine how many people sadly wake up today feeling great, they pass away during the day of a heart attack, a cardiovascular attack, that 50% of people will pass on their first attack, meaning that's the first sign their body's ever given them that they've got a problem, cardiovascular problem. They didn't have a chance. So we change our definition. Our definition is based on function. And 100% function, there's a word for it, homeostasis. And that can only occur when the body's getting a sufficiency of its nutrients and it's what it needs, what's essential, and a minimum or zero of toxins. So when we consider this situation, if the person on their journey is focused on all those toxins and remove them from their diet or minimize them to as low as possible, but at the same time increase their nutrients and what was missing. And in our example now, we know that oxygen's missing. We want to get it there and then keep it there at a certain level. At the same time, we want to keep those toxins as low as possible.
Exactly. Because you don't want to keep filling your body up with all the stuff that you've been trying to get rid of.
Exactly. Yeah. And look, what I've tried to do today is explain this in a really simple way that people understand. There's complexities behind this. There's beautiful science behind it. You can actually look at each ailment, condition, challenge, or disease and understand at a physiological level how an increase in oxygen helps. But this is the basics of it. So once again, it's really exciting. It's a moment where we are going to see this explode. I feel in the last 10 years or so, at least in Australia, home ownership of infrared saunas has gone through the roof.
I think it has here too. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel we're going to see the same with mild hyperbaric oxygen therapy due to the fact that it's evolved. It has evolved from the hospital to the softer ones that were okay, but nowhere near as efficient as what we're getting now.
Yeah.
And we're getting people that are well known in health coming out and they're testing themselves and publicizing that on YouTube and on their Instagram channels and all the rest. So people are finding out, wow, oxygen is the missing element for so many conditions.
It's remarkable to me how much health and healing has changed and the tools that we have available to us now. Just interviewing all kinds of people like you, and I interviewed somebody with a red light therapy machine for the whole body, and I just spoke to a guy that created this supplement from a fruit from China that actually helped reverse his stage 3 Parkinson's. It's just like absolutely amazing what's happening now and how many options are available for us.
That's a really good point. When this doctor and I devised Mum's strategy around her health, what I did was I found as much as what I could that would boost Mum's health. And then I also looked at things that had been either published or well known in regards to what would not aggravate, but I guess focus on the tumor. Let's say apricot kernel. Okay. Now, hang on. We just didn't luckily choose the right things, and that's it. And what you realize is there's so many things that boost health. Yeah. And there's so many things that also can aggravate. When I say aggravate, deal with and treat a pathogen or a cancer cell or mold or bacteria. And it comes back to that definition. Give the body what it needs.
Yes.
And the variety of things it benefits from. Keep it away from what it can't have. Do the job. Like, even if we have someone in their 90s who's chronically ill and they cut their hand, most times their body's going to have the ability to heal. We just have to recognize the blockages, remove the blockages, and boost it where we can. Yes. And that's why we're at a beautiful moment, as you just mentioned, because, hey, we're learning about all these different things. And you mentioned that red light. Red light, that combines really well before a hyperbaric chamber session because the red light, one of the benefits is that it stimulates the mitochondria of the cell to produce more energy.
Cool.
This is really interesting, but once again, study, go online and verify what I'm saying. But hyperbaric oxygen, when it gets to the mitochondria, not only increases the efficiency, but it increases the number of mitochondria in the cell. That's incredible.
That is incredible.
When people go deep on this, they'll see that nothing else is doing this. So it's not like one's in competition with another.
Supplementing each other, enhancing the effects of things. I just started drinking hydrogen water and I'm only a week in and I've already noticed that my eyes are not as dry as they had been. And that's like the most noticeable thing. And I'm actually also feeling like I'm sleeping a little bit better. I typically am a light sleeper and every time my dog's ears flap, I wake up. But it's remarkable what we have available.
Really is, And look, I did a chamber session just before.
Oh, did you?
This morning, I had activated hydrogen in the chamber.
Oh, no kidding.
So you can actually do things to augment the effect.
Yes.
While you're in the chamber. So
I see rainbow color on your face. You must have a crystal or something in the window.
Oh, no, it's actually the sunlight because it's morning here and it's coming through my window. I didn't notice that.
Lovely. Wow, Jason, this has been fascinating. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you wish that I had?
No, I think we covered that really well in regards to planting the seed around the consideration of the use of mild hyperbaric oxygen therapy, advising people, hey, this is new. It's very new. It's evolving, it's new, and it's accessible. Okay. It's very important to understand that one thing, as I said, doesn't compete with the other. I get a lot of people coming and saying, hey, but we've got our sauna, we've got our PEMF set up, we've got ice bath and red light.
Right.
Oh, does this fit in? And if you look at it, all of those things are incredible for boosting health. However, at a level of study, nothing comes close to the study around hyperbaric oxygen therapy. It's been
Hmm.
around much longer than what we imagine.
Wow.
Okay. Like literally 200 years ago, doctors were already associating the benefits of oxygen in the body under pressure and using pressure to get it to where it needed to go. I don't think they fully understood the science, but they
Right.
realized, say, anaerobic bacteria post surgery, hey, this is a real interesting, or even during surgery. One doctor was doing it during surgery in a pressurized compartment. But it's evolved. It's evolved to the levels of divers that were building the Brooklyn Bridge and not coming up too fast and getting the bends. So they realized that this was really important to help them through that process. But then that
Wow.
associates with diving and hyperbaric oxygen therapy. They also noticed that, hang on, divers are going to the depths that we pressurize someone in the chamber and they're breathing 100% oxygen. So they noticed other ailments, other conditions in a diver's health improve
Oh,
that
wow.
originally they thought were attributable to the fact that, oh, their serotonin levels are really high because they're in nature and they're observing starfish and fish and all the rest. It wasn't that. That probably it's obviously beneficial.
Oxygen under pressure.
That's it. That's
Wow.
it. So it's been a long time of correlating and observing these reactions plus the study to get to what, once again, the most exciting point in health that I've seen in my life. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that's really important for most people to understand. Please consider this. It doesn't matter what's going on.
Right.
I always remind everybody it's not a miracle. The miracle is what your body does when it gets what it
Yes.
needs to heal, and oxygen is extremely important in that case.
Yeah. And I think to that same point, our bodies are designed to heal if we give them exactly what they need. And then any of these supplemental helping aids, I guess you could say, to make things happen faster.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's an
Yeah.
exciting time to be alive as far as health goes.
Indeed. This has been great. How do people get in touch with you if they wanted to chat with you or have a
Yeah,
session or
yeah. Via Instagram's always a good way. It's the way a lot of people contact me around the world. And
okay.
my name is Jason Gilbert Official. That's my Instagram.
Oh, okay.
What do you call that? It's not an address. That's my Instagram. My
Okay.
webpage is jasongilbert.com.au.
Oh, okay.
And there's a whole lot of online ebooks there as well and some
Oh,
online
nice.
courses. Yeah, and that's really interesting for a lot of people. Look, I'm all for empowering people with information to allow
Yes.
them to heal themselves. So that's the way we want to do this. We don't really want to rely on somebody. And typically in I guess, a disease system, we're
Hmm.
relying on people when we've already lost our health, where we need to empower ourselves with the information. For example, via what you're doing, Amy, passing
Yes.
this information on. So it's a bit like saving money. We're saving as
Absolutely.
opposed to spending when we need to pay for something later on. We
Yeah.
start saving now.
Agreed.
So there we
Ah,
go.
yes. That is definitely the way for the healthy future.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah, no, it's been a pleasure and congratulations. People need to be hearing the sort of information you're disseminating. So
Thanks.
congratulations.
It's my pleasure. I'm absolutely loving these interviews. Thank you so much for listening today. If this podcast opened your eyes to what might be possible outside of the conventional systems, or simply gave you a new way to think about healing, that's exactly why I do this work. These conversations aren't about quick fixes or new fads or hype. They're about understanding what our bodies truly need and removing the obstacles that get in the way of actual healing and homeostasis. If you want more conversations like this, along with practical guidance for detoxing your food, your home, and your life, I'd love to have you join my free newsletter, Notes from the Rebellion. It's where I share the things that I can't always fit into a podcast episode, deeper insights, simple swaps, surprising research, and tools to help you live a less toxic, more eco friendly life without the overwhelm. You can sign up at my website, greenlivingnow.com, and you'll find the link in the show notes. It's completely free, and it's the best way to stay connected and keep growing this community. Thanks again for being here, and I'll see you next week.